Good evening. Today we're going to be doing a tune in the style of Prodigy. Let's get into it. And there we have it. This is a bit of a different one this week. When I started doing this tune, I wanted to make it as authentic to the Prodigy style as possible. And what Liam Howlett always did when making tunes was sample from other songs. And in some ways, it's a bit of a lost art. You don't really see much of that happening in modern day music. If you think of Prodigy as a great example, Fatboy Slim, like loads of hip hop is all based on samples. Like Kanye is an absolute master of it. We take little parts from other songs, whether that's drum loops or orchestral samples, particularly with hip hop, and sort of splicing loads of different parts of other songs together to make something totally new. So we're not going to have kind of production techniques that we normally cover because there's very little sound design and there's very little curating of our own sort of fundamental parts of the track because it's all been sampled. But I thought it was a super interesting way of making music, and I've never actually done this before, so this is the first time I've ever made a tune that is pretty much 90% based on samples. But for people who are struggling in terms of sound design or being able to make their own drums hit hard or whatever, sampling is a great way of doing it, and hopefully this shows you a way that we can do it. And I've used some really famous samples in this, and if anyone can guess them along the way, I'll be super impressed because they've been spliced up in a way that you might not necessarily recognize when we hear the track as a whole, but when I play them soloed, there'll be some very famous samples that you'll recognize. The only thing I've done to manipulate them is either changing the tempo or changing the pitch, but generally I haven't actually done too much at all. I'll cover what I have done to them along the way, but I think the beauty of this kind of music is not being too manipulative, like keeping the essence of the original tunes, because then it feels like you sort of maintain the spirit of the original tracks. So we're starting off with this little sample.
Moderate rock.
Any guesses? This is a Nirvana song, Tourette's.
Moderate rock.
So I literally just wanted that feedback, that guitar-y feedback, because it sort of helped the sort of vibe of the like punkiness of the Prodigy. Like the Prodigy are, first and foremost, make dance music, but so much of their influence is very punky, and a lot of UK punk particularly. That really reminds me of like the Sex Pistols, but a dance version of the Sex Pistols. So using the US equivalent of punk being grunge, I guess, especially in that 90s era, I thought Nirvana were a great one to pull from. So this is our intro.
Moderate rock.
So we come into our first main motif, and this maintains throughout, and it's a guitar. You hear a lot of Prodigy, there's a lot of guitar-based stuff, so I've tried to look for a lot of the bands that I really like and find guitar riffs that would just work for this kind of music. And to preface, actually, kind of easy when you're looking at this to think that I've just sort of landed on these samples first time, but it took me ages and ages to find the right ones. You know, I went through loads of different iterations of different guitar riffs to make this sound as good as it possibly can. It took a while, but this is our first and main motif. Can we guess where this song is from? Iconic. The Stooges. So that tiny little bit of that riff, we've just snapped that up. And a few things that I had to do for the processing. With that remastered version, the guitar was really panned hard left. So without its utility, the the guitar is super wide, so I had to use this utility to bring the width down a little bit. And I've just taken some of the high end out. It's a heavily distorted guitar, so it's really intense. Got a sausage fattener on there, a bit of soothe again to tame some of those frequencies. And again, there's some weird little frequencies that were bugging me, so I had to get rid of them. But we've got that tiny bit of the riff pretty much on loop throughout the song. And to make it feel a little bit more Prodigy, I added this little acid lead. This is one of the few things that isn't actually a sample from another song. This is just a one shot that I've made to sort of fit the guitar riff. So they're doing a very similar melody. Very, very Prodigy sounding. So those two on top of each other. Perfetto. And then we start coming in with this little guitar trill. This is a real deep cut. This is a band called Refused. I'll play the original and I've just snipped a little 2-second bit out of that song. So that na 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 na, I'm just taking that little bit out. We just loop that. I've got a bit of, I've got the amp on there, got a bit of reverb, a bit of EQ, just tighten it up a little bit. Throughout that whole song, it's pretty much sitting on loop like that. It's just playing one note. It's almost acting like a high string, like you're doing in a house song. It's hitting that one note while everything else changes beneath it. You've got this one constant part of the harmony that is staying static. And then we come into this little fill before the drop. That is a Thin Lizzy sample. Let's hear the original. So just that little snippet we use as our fill to go into the drop. One other thing that I've got going on is in that same song by Refused that we played earlier, doing that little guitar trill. There's a little part of that song. It's got this lovely little phasey bit. So this is the original. And I've just taken that little bit of snippet. That phasey thing sounded really, really Prodigy to me, so I thought I'd snip that little bit out. Just a little fill before we go into the drop. And this weird little yoy is a Serum preset that I'm pretty sure is a stock preset. It's in factory, it's called Smack My Reese Up. Like Smack My Bitch Up. And it was absolutely perfect for this, so I'm very glad that was there because I didn't actually have to do any sound design to this whole song. Just that one note sounded super sick. So we've got loads of things going on in this drop. I'm going to start off with the drums. All of our drums, again, are samples. So this is what our drums sound like. If you can hear, the kicks here and here are super pronounced, really loud, and then the kicks down here are a bit quieter and they didn't have as much impact. So I took the first bit of this sample and created a new audio track and put a kick there. So we sort of reinforced this little bit of the kick. So if we listen to it before and after, these kicks hit so much harder. Just to help that blend in a little bit more, I've got a shaper box and we're only doing the lows. So up to about 450 hertz. We're sidechaining this drum loop to this kick. So when this kick hits, all of the lows from this drum loop come out and makes room for this new kick that we've got in there. And this sample is 10 City Devotion. I think it's the vocal mix. You can't actually get it on Spotify. You can only get it on YouTube. But I think there's been some pretty iconic songs that have used this drum break. So let's have a listen. So that's our main drum break. So while we're doing the drums, I've got this weird little tom fill in here as well. So this little man, tiny little snippet from a Queens of the Stone Age song. No One Knows. Let's play that. No one knows. That little drum fill. is what we've taken just for that little fill. So we've got a tiny little snippet of that in there. So we have our main Stooges guitar going on throughout this whole song, but I've got peppered in these little bits of a guitar down here. Anyone guess what that is? Just one of those days. It's a Limp Bizkit sample. It's just one of those days. So I slightly pitched it and sped it up a bit. Just that little bit at the start of the drop. So we have that, and then we have the Stooges guitar coming in just after that. And then again. Just helps sort of break it up a little bit, because if we had that Stooges one over and over again, I think it would get a bit boring. So this helps discern this first part of our build to the second part. So in the drop, we've got something that's new coming in. And then we have this super, super, super famous. Surely some of you will be able to get that sample. It is, of course, Jimi Hendrix. We've just taken a little snippet from that. So that is just playing one note pretty much the whole of the way through, but it gives a really, really cool vibe. And I've got a bit of OTC on there, a bit of reverb, and just taking out some of the lows. And this is one of the few things that isn't actually a sample from another song. This is just a sample in my library that I found that sounded very Prodigy. So this was the original sample. We've just pitched it up a little bit, put a little reverb on there, not too much. Definitely helps distinguish the second half of that drop from the first one. If we didn't have something like that in there, it could maybe feel like this first part of the drop was just on loop twice round. So something like this, it helps give a little bit of ear candy as we're going through. And of course, we've got a little almond break in there just before the drop. I couldn't tell you what the original of that is from, but I'm sure it's from an original song. And then we have our classic Prodigy Haze. Absolutely iconic. This is from a tune called Close by The Art of Noise. Unreal. And there we have it. Bit of a different one. I think it's interesting to see and make, for the first time really, music that is pretty much all done by sampling. So there's not very many production techniques that we usually go through, because actually there aren't many to talk about. Because if you think about like the way that Liam Howlett in particular was making music, it probably wasn't doing so much like sidechaining the bass to the kick, the synths to the kick and all that kind of stuff, because you can't really do that when you're using samples. This is an interesting way of looking at making music in a different way than I think we in the modern day are kind of used to doing it. And this actually took way longer than I expected. Like, I was only going through songs that I liked and try to find little snippets that I thought would work. You know, like stuff like this little Tom fill at the end of a Queens of the Stone Age track. Got to listen to 3 minutes of music to be able to find that little gem. And half of the fun is going out digging for gold. It's a very different way of approaching music, because normally we're making everything from scratch. You kind of never stumble upon something that is just got a bit of magic in it. Whereas when you're looking at old records like this, it's a really quite an inspiring way of making music, because a lot of this stuff I would never have necessarily thought to do myself. I feel like it's a bit of a lost art. You know, in some ways it's collage. Like you could take a bit from the Mona Lisa and a bit from the Sistine Chapel and create something new from it. And that is kind of what these artists were doing, is drawing from the genius from the past and creating something new. It's great as a way to keep old music alive in a way. And it's super inspiring just being able to do this for the first time. Like how difficult it is, actually. I think someone who's never done it before might think you just put a couple of samples over the top of each other and it just works. But it's a long drawn out process and it's an art in itself. So I hope this is a bit of an inspiration for like a different way to make music, because I particularly am ingrained in the way that I make music, and I've never done something like this before. But actually you can make some really, really interesting and different stuff with this kind of method. And there's a reason that it's so popular in hip hop. There's a reason that Prodigy are so massive. There's a reason that Flatboy Slim is so big, and we don't really see that much these days. That method of making music has died a little bit. Hopefully we can reignite that a little bit. True artists only steal, someone once said. A clever man once said that, and I'm regurgitating his words. So actually I'm doing the same thing with those words that I've done with this project. I've taken someone else's work and I'm taking it as my own. Thank you very much for watching, and please do actually subscribe. I always forget to say that. Can you subscribe and like, and maybe put a fire emoji for Firestarter in the comments? That'd be amazing. Thank you very much, and love to your mothers.